Welcome back to the fourth module of the Budget 1 course. I hope you did well with the previous module's questions. Now we're going to look at the fourth module, which is our first part of compliance, which deals with the determining of allowability of costs. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the uniform guidance in Title 34. So uniform guidance, which Plant Moran did an excellent job covering in a separate course. We're going to look at allowability, factors affecting the allowability of costs. First, the costs must be necessary and reasonable for the performance of the federal award and be allocable thereto under these principles. To be reasonable, the cost is reasonable, and if it's in its nature and amount, it does not exceed that which would be incurred by a prudent person under circumstances. Basically, it has to, a reasonable person would have to determine it reasonably. It's not excessive. It's not treated differently than you would treat. It's not there for the sole purpose of spending down your budget. Next, it's allocable if the federal award, if the goods and services involved are chargeable or signable to the federal award in accordance with the relative benefits received. It has to be specifically allocable to that federal award, not you're spending it for a different budget and you have it just because you have that federal budget available, you're going to spend it there. Next, it has to conform to any limitation or exclusion set forth in these principles, be consistent with policies and procedures, and apply uniformly to both federally financed and other activities non-federally. You can't treat it differently than you would treat it non-federal funding within your institution. And that goes into our next one, be accorded consistent treatment, which means that you should treat federal costs in a similar manner consistent with your procedures for non-federal funds of a like manner at your institution. It should be determined in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. That's GAAP. Everyone that's ever had an accounting course have heard of GAAP. I'm not going to dive into that too much. It should not be included as a cost or used to meet cost sharing or matching requirements. You can't double count it. You can't use it as federal dollars and non-federal dollars for your reporting. And it should be adequately documented, which obviously is important for all accounting to leave that audit trail. You should have a procedure of what adequately documented means, because you might have turnover when your auditors come. They're going to ask for specific documentation. Time might have occurred, so it's going to be hard to have that documentation go back in a period of time and gather it then. You should be doing it as needed at the time it occurs. Next, we're going to cover Title 34, which is the principal set of rules and regulation issued by federal agencies regarding education. As you can see, it's in subpart D 30 to 31, which are linked on this slide. You can see talent search is 643, educational opportunity centers is 644, 645 is upward bound, veterans upward bound, math and science. 646 is student support services, and 647 is Ronald E. McNair. So if we look at 643, talent search, I'm not going to cover allowable costs. You could look at those on your own. We're going to look specifically at unallowable costs. So some unallowable costs for talent search include stipends and other forms of direct financial support for participants, application fees for financial aid, research not directly related to the evaluation or improvement of the project, and construction, renovation, and remodeling of any facilities. So after looking at 643, we're going to look at 644 for educational opportunity centers. Some unallowable costs for EOC are tuition fees, stipends, and other forms of direct financial support for participants, research not directly related to the evaluation or improvement of the project, construction, renovation, and remodeling of any facilities. So next we're going to look at 644 upward bound, which I mentioned before. It includes upward bound math and science centers, and veterans upward bound. Some unallowable costs include research not directly related to the evaluation or improvement of the project, meals for staff, unless there's some stipulations where it's dormitory supervision of participants in a residential summer component, or overnight on a field trip. Room and board for administrative and instructional staff, less like the one previously. It's a summer residential program or a field trip, or it's been approved prior to that by your program officer. This continues room and board for participants in veterans upward bound projects, construction, renovation, and remodeling of any facilities, tuition stipends, or any other form of student financial aid for project staff beyond that provided to employees of the grantee as part of its regular fringe benefits. So it's not an excess, but if it's part of your regular fringe benefits, it can be included. Upward bound does have some allowable participant stipends, which you can see right there. And it can be included as long as there's regular attendance and performance in accordance with the standards established by the grantee and described in the application. So obviously you're going to want to consult back to that CAN that I keep mentioning in the prior presentations. Next, we're going to look at 646, which covers student support services. Some unallowable costs are costs involved in recruiting students for enrollment at the institution, research not directly related to the evaluation or improvement of the project, and that one that keeps occurring, construction, renovation, or remodeling of any facilities. So let's continue on with student support services. Tuition fees, stipends, and other forms of direct financial support, except for the grant aid under participants who are, and there's the stipulations, in the first 2 years of their post-secondary education and are receiving federal Pell, or have completed their first 2 years of post-secondary education, are receiving federal Pell grants under Subpart 1 of Part A, and the institution demonstrates that the satisfaction to the USDOE that these students are at high risk of dropping out, and it will meet its needs of all its eligible students in the first part first. Next, we're going to look at 647 for Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program. Some unallowable costs here are that one that keeps occurring, construction, renovation, and remodeling of any facilities, payment of tuition, stipends, test preparation of fees of any other form of student financial support to participants not expressly allowed, stipends of up to $2,800 for students engaged in research internships, necessary tuition, room and board, and transportation students engaged in research internships during the summer might be allowed. Thank you again for staying with me during this presentation. And as of all the other presentations, please contact Nichelle Knox at the email listed on this slide if you have any questions, and she will forward it to me or any other party that might answer your question. As always, there will be certain questions following this module that you have to complete. After these questions, we will come back to the next module, which will be our second part of compliance and cover time and effort reporting. Please complete the questions. I will see you again when we cover time and effort reporting.